Many of you don't know, but Spotify is changing its royalty model. Over the last week, Spotify has announced that it will be changing its royalty model in three main ways, really. And so in this video, I'm going to break down how it's changing, how it's going to affect you, and also what you can do to counteract the most important aspect of how it's most likely going to affect you artists. Because if you're watching this, you're probably a musician, an artist, a producer, and you probably want to know how you can get the most out of Spotify's royalty system, as that is obviously a major way of how you're going to be getting income in today's music industry. So in this video, I'm going to break all that down for you, and we're mainly going to be going over exactly how Spotify's model is changing. So here, as you can see, the three main changes. So according to Music Business Worldwide, there are three main changes that will be implemented for the start of 2024. So as of right now, going to the end of 2023, this won't have any impact at all. But going into 2024, that's when it'll start. So firstly, a threshold of minimum streams before a track starts generating royalties on Spotify, and I'll explain all that in a moment. 2, a minimum length of playtime that each non-music noise track must reach in order to generate royalties. A non-music noise track being like white noise, meditation music, etc. And then the third main change is financially penalising distributors of music when fraudulent activity is detected on tracks that have been uploaded to Spotify. And that to me is probably the biggest one, although there's not as much to cover. So firstly, I'm going to break down the streams threshold. So every play over 30 seconds triggers royalty payment. So when somebody streams your song, over 30 seconds of your song, that immediately triggers a royalty payment. So then you get that 0.003 cent for that stream. But from 2024, each track will have to reach a minimum number of annual streams. So not only now will people have to stream your songs for over 30 seconds, but you'll also have to reach a minimum number of annual streams. Otherwise, you won't get paid. So the amount is currently unspecified. However, rumours suggest it's for tracks that earn less than 5 cents per month, which isn't much, because if we actually do the maths like Music Business Worldwide did, each play generates 0.003 cent a stream, yeah? So each play, that's how much you get paid for it. For a track to generate 5 cents per month, that's 17 plays a month. That's 200 plays a year. So let's put it like this. In that case, truth is, your song obviously isn't being listened to much at all. It's probably just you and your close friends and the odd person who comes to find it. So in that case, it doesn't really make much of an impact. But why are Spotify doing this? Because 100,000 songs are rumoured to be uploaded every day. So even though it may not impact you individually too much, because you most likely wouldn't be getting that money anyway from distributors, the amount of money that the less than 200 streams a year tracks generate altogether adds up to tens of millions of dollars. So for Spotify, it's costing a lot of money. However, individually, you're not really getting much. 200 streams a year, you're not getting much at all. You're not getting much. Let's put it like that. You're getting 5 cents a month. That's not much. So basically what my point is, the amount of money that the less than 200 streams a year tracks generate altogether adds up to tens of millions of dollars for Spotify. So it's costing them a lot. So according to Music Business Worldwide, $40 million will go back into Spotify's royalty pot, which then will be distributed amongst the remaining tracks, which will be the more popular tracks. Now, one of the big things that Music Business Worldwide suggested was that they claim that often these micropayments aren't even reaching the artists because they require a minimum level of paid out royalties before they allow indie artists to withdraw. So they claim that, these distributors that are essentially distributing your music for you, they're not paying out all of the royalties and all of the streaming revenue that you should be getting because they require a minimum level of paid out royalties before they actually allow indie artists to withdraw. So then, this money is sitting idle in a bank. So essentially, there's millions of dollars worth of streaming royalties that is just sitting in a bank. Nothing can be done with it. So, according to Music Business Worldwide, DIY distributors have that money sat in their bank account collecting interest. And they may not like this idea. But, obviously, it's going to be good for Spotify because they're not having to pay these royalties out. And so the idea is that those royalties then will then go to the big pot of money, and then that will be sent to everybody else who essentially is making more money from their music, or is getting more streams, or has more of a fan base. So that's what's going on. And but how will this impact you? Okay, so this is like the other side of the argument, right? So according to Mark Mulligan, who's a music analyst, he owns a music analyst company. This is a 2-tier system. So this is the start of a 2-tier system. And this system, quote unquote, does not even try to turn back the clock on the rise of independence. It simply funnels the growing revenue from this cultural paradigm shift to the bigger artists who are losing share. So this means that the growth of independent artists and the revenue that they're bringing in is simply going to be given to bigger artists. Now, if that is the case, then obviously that's going to have a major impact on independent artists. And that is showing that this system that is being created purely for the big labels, purely for the big artists onto major labels, all the work that's been done over the last 10, 20 years for independent artists is just, it's not even worth it. Now, is that fundamentally true? Well, if we're talking about artists who are getting less than 200 strip plays a year on their tracks, obviously it's not, it's not impacting them too much, right? But if this is the start of something where this is just the first step, then obviously it could be a massive impact. Because what if the next step is then, okay, so artists that are making less than 1,000 streams a year on their songs, that money will then be given to the bigger artists, etc., etc., etc. Does that make sense? So if that keeps growing, that minimum amount, then obviously they're just simply funneling the growing revenue from this rising independence to the bigger artists. And the reason why he said who are losing share is because the independent market is growing and it's projected to go up to 10% of the overall streaming revenue, but yet the labels and the bigger artists are dropping. And that's obviously purely because there's more independent artists out there now. They're growing more, they're bringing more fans in, more people are streaming independent artists, not just every big artist under the sun. And so, because we only have a certain amount of attention, less attention is going to the bigger artists and more attention is going to independent artists. So that's why the likes of Russ have become so big. And that's also, because if you think back to, let's say, 40 years ago, right? In terms of buying records, most of the records that would have been bought are going to be the radio records, right? They're the songs that have been played on the radio. However, now, because there's so many more independent artists, there's so much more choice. And because there's so much more choice, there's more people who are streaming music that they otherwise wouldn't have streamed 40, 50 years ago because they know it exists now. So that was a little tangent, but that is how essentially it will impact you. But let's go over how you can get paid. So you may be wondering, like, how do I even get paid? Like, where do I get paid? Where do I get this money from, etc.? So, of course, you've got to be releasing your music through a distributor, whether that's DistroKid, Ditto, TuneCore, whoever it is, doesn't really matter. But in order to actually get your other royalties that you may not be aware of, I've created 3 steps here. So firstly, sign up for a performance rights organisation. They are responsible for collecting income on your behalf, right? Step 2 is register with a publishing administrator. For example, Songtrust. They help you collect your mechanical and international royalties directly. And third, register with Sound Exchange for your non-interactive royalties. Go and do that right now after this video, and you'll be well on your way to actually getting the money that you're owed and the money that you actually should be making. And then, of course, that's just when it comes down to this aspect of it. I'm a firm believer that artists should be creating a business outside of just their streaming and their music, and that the music is almost like brings the fans in. But then, of course, fans don't just love the artist's music, they also love the artist and the brand behind the music as well. So if you actually want to build a career off music, then it's about creating other revenue sources outside of your traditional like shows, streaming. Because let's be honest, as the artist Baby No Money states, touring essentially at the start is just called, in his words, volunteering. So you're volunteering, so essentially you're going to do a show and you're not getting paid for it. And often that's going to be the case for the first 5 to 10 years of your career. If you're lucky, it might be shorter. But until you get to that big stage, you're not going to be getting paid from tours. So that's not something that you can be expecting to get immediate revenue from, right? And it's the same for streaming. And so you're going to need to rely on those first 1,000 fans. Because if you have 1,000 fans and they're streaming your music, let's say 10 times a month, you might get 10,000 streams a month. Still, that's not too much. And if they're spread out across, different countries, across the whole of your country, doing shows is very, you being a headline act for those shows isn't going to work out too well. So you're going to be volunteering with other artists or just doing shows as often as you can. So I'm a big believer in actually creating products outside of just your traditional shows and streams. And of course, the way you do that is by creating merch, creating offers. For example, Drake did this excellently by creating a poetry book, which was not the most amazing poetry book, let's put it like this, but in there he announced his next album, and that was something special that his closest fans could get to. So that's just some food for thought, really. And then, of course, the second thing that is going to be the second biggest change that they're implementing is bots. So they are financially penalising distributors of music, labels included, when fraudulent activity is detected on music that they've uploaded to Spotify. And Spotify claims that they have the best anti-fraud detection technology in the whole of the industry. So their plan is to use that to then detect who's using bots and then charge those people, those distributors, whether it's independent artists, whether it's labels, money when they're then using bots. So that is what their plan is, and the idea behind this is, number one, not only do bots ruin the user experience, we've all seen this, they completely ruin the user experience, whether it's across social media, whether it's across Spotify. And the reason why they ruin the user experience on Spotify is because if somebody goes onto an artist's account and they see they've got 100 million streams, let's say, they're going to immediately think, wow, how have I not heard this artist's song? It must be a hit. And if it's just botted and it's a terrible song, then they're not going to actually trust Spotify's data and analytics anymore, are they? So it is on Spotify's own side, their own terms, that they need to improve that user experience. And one of the ways they do that is by essentially punishing the artists and the labels who use bots. And up until now, the only way that they've done that is through taking the song off Spotify. But as we can clearly see, that's not really having much of an impact. And so now they're going to be, coming up with financially penalising the distributors of this music. And another reason why is because criminal gangs have been laundering money through Spotify. I'm not sure whether you've heard of this, but Swedish criminal gangs have been using fake Spotify streams to launder money. So that's another reason why. And if you're using bots, you're essentially stealing money from Spotify. So you're essentially committing fraud, right? That's what it is. And so they want to create this financial penalty as more of a deterrent from, from you using bots than just getting your music taken down would be. So how will this impact you? Well, simply if you're using bots, then you're fucked. But Spotify claims that more money will enter the pot for real artists and right holders to benefit from. So you may end up making more money from your music. If you're not using bots, and if you actually have an audience of people who are streaming your music and you're bringing people to listen to your music on Spotify, in the long term, over the next 5 years, you could end up making more money because of this move from Spotify. And that's what they're claiming. Whether or not that's true, we'll have to see. But that is what they're claiming. So the third major change is non-music noise tracks. Now this won't be relevant to many of you artists, but according to Music Business Worldwide, non-music noise content, which is white noise, binaural beats, whale song, etc., get paid the same as every other creator of music on Spotify. Some non-music artists have been making tracks that are 31 seconds long. So essentially, the minimum payout time, so the minimum unit time that each track of non-music tracks must meet before payout is 31 seconds. So every 31 seconds someone streams a song, every 30 seconds that someone streams a strong song, you're getting royalties and you're getting paid for it. So some of these non-music artists have been making tracks that are 31 seconds long. So then somebody streams 30 seconds of the song, they get paid, onto the next song, streams 30 seconds of the song, onto the next song, they're getting paid. So Spotify is increasing this time for non-music tracks. That at the moment it's only for non-music tracks. So it's not for your rap songs, pop songs, etc. But as of yet, the confirmation about how long this minimum unit time will be is unknown. And as I said, like what I mentioned a minute ago, some people have been gaming the system. Some non-music artists have been making tracks that are 31 seconds long. And if someone plays a playlist and it's filled with these 31 second long tracks, then royalty payouts will be made every 30 to 31 seconds. And some of these artists have been creating playlists, like sleep playlists of white noise. Every song is just 31 seconds long. And think about it, someone sleeps for like 8 hours and these songs are getting played over and over again. Spotify is giving a hell of a lot of money away, even though these people aren't really fully engaging with that song, if that makes sense. So people have been gaming the system and Spotify wants to get rid of that. So this is what they call the $1 billion plan, essentially. Music Business Worldwide claims that because royalties are being shifted away from fraudsters, microtransactions, and those gaming Spotify's royalty system, they will be able to shift $1 billion towards real working artists over the next 5 years. But, here's the but, this won't alter the size of the total royalty pool being paid out. It won't. So essentially, it won't mean that more money is being paid out. It will mean that that money is just reallocated. So it's just reallocated to the artists who deserve it more. That's what Spotify is claiming. And of course, this is going to be over the next 5 years, this $1 billion plan. So we will have to see how it goes. Some people love it, some people hate it. What are your guys' thoughts? Let me know, and I'll make a video soon. Bye-bye.